Hello everyone, I'm here in Bali, and yesterday I sat down with the wonderful Paige, who is Discovering Mum on Instagram, and she coaches women through their journey with motherhood. And it was so amazing to speak to Paige because I think that motherhood is such a beautiful initiation into unconditional love and so much more. Paige is a 10-week-old baby and just showed up in such a beautiful way on this episode. And I really wanted to chat with her about what it's like to be a mother and also run a business alongside that. And even if you're not a mother, I think it's really important to listen to this episode because we talk a lot about the notion of not having enough time, the notion of learning to connect and listen into what your needs are and really honoring those. And we can all learn from that, no matter where we are. We also spoke into identity because I think there's this idea of when you become a mother, a lot of people put their full heart into it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's such a beautiful thing. But I think a lot of people feel like they lose themselves in this journey, and Paige coaches people through that. And we spoke into this a lot in this episode. And this is useful for anyone, when we get a job or we commit our lives in a relationship. We sometimes lose ourselves in that, and this is the journey of life to rediscover who we are over and over again. But sometimes we need guidance on that journey. So I hope this episode helps you with that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Wisdom Within. I'm here with the wonderful Paige. And today we're going to dive into a topic that I haven't yet covered on my podcast yet. It's to do with all things related to motherhood. So, Paige, if you want to introduce a bit about what you do, about how you serve people at this current moment in your life, and just say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Paige and I'm a mindset and empowerment coach, and I focus largely on women, new mums, that are really just going through that motherhood journey, because essentially this all derives from like my own experience of transitioning into motherhood for the first time, and I really experienced that shift in my identity and that kind of mourning of my old self as I went into this new version of me. And that can be a really challenging time for a lot of women and for a lot of mums as we navigate learning how to be a mum, having this brand new baby in our lives, as well as who we are alongside being a mum, because we still have our own identity, we still have everything of who we were before, but it's kind of where does that all fit in? And that can be a really difficult thing to navigate in terms of our mindset and this feeling as well of guilt that comes up for mums around, am I allowed to still be me? Am I allowed to still do those things? Am I allowed to still treat myself, for example? So I really help mums navigate their confidence and their self-worth in terms of who they are as an individual and what their purpose is for themselves alongside being a mum, and just getting into that really kind of mindset where they can thrive as an individual, as a woman, alongside being an incredible mum.
That's such a beautiful intention, and it's amazing when we come to things from our own experience. So I'd love to hear more about what that was like, because I can only imagine how much your life transforms and how easy and common it is to lose parts of yourself. And so, I'd love to hear more about your journey with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, so I had my son in 2019 and that was all fine. But then obviously we went into lockdown, COVID pandemic in 2020, and I'd not long gone back to work. So I'd been back at work 2 months when we went into that lockdown. And obviously all of our routines changed. We were then confined to our homes for our safety. And it was as though everything that I knew myself to be kind of fell away. And
Mm,
I was an employee and I was a mum and I was a partner, and that was it. It was like
mm,
I woke up and I was a mum, then I went to work, I would do two jobs, I'd be juggling. And the next thing I knew, it was about probably 6 months into COVID at this point, probably less. And I remember walking past the mirror and thinking, I have no idea who she is. Like,
Mm.
and even though that was kind of like a physical appearance moment, it was so much deeper than that, because I was like, not only do I not recognize who I am in the mirror, it was as though I was looking back at myself being like, we've got no idea who we are right now.
Mm.
And it was as though everything that I was had been completely stripped away. And it was when the world started to open back up again that I remember the nursery opened back up, and I had this complete emotional breakdown about sending my son back into nursery for one morning, because I felt guilty that I wanted more for myself than just being a mum.
Mm.
And I really wrestled with that, because I was like, why isn't just being a mum enough? Like, why do I, even though I'd been furloughed at this point, just want to be a complete full-time stay-at-home mum? And I was like, I realized that it was because I just wanted more for me.
Mm.
Like, I wanted to get to know me again and
Mm.
have that sense of identity as who I am as a woman, not just me as a mum, because we evolve as we go through life, we evolve as we grow, as we experience new things. And you don't just stop having interests the second you have children. There's still, like you say, those parts of you that exist. There's still those interests, those hobbies, those cravings for growth and for learning that we have. And basically, I then reached a point where I was like, I need to figure out who I am again. I need to figure out who I am in this new chapter of my life, this new version of me, this evolved version that's now got this motherhood part, which is wonderful. And so, yeah, I just went on this kind of self-discovery journey, which was really fun, because I got to be this blank canvas again, and I got to know me again. And how often do we ever really get to do that, to consciously sit and go, right, who am I now? What what do I look like now? And consciously add things back into my life that brought me joy, and motherhood was the perfect opportunity to do that.
Mm, yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And I think what you say is so true, is that like having that moment of like, who am I? There's two ways you can always look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm having an identity crisis, or actually now I get to choose who I want to become. I can recreate and rediscover. So what things helped you like put that positive reframe on that?
Mm. So a big thing for me was meditation. I'd dabbled with meditation in the past, and just found it as one of those things where I just was always thinking what I wanted to eat for dinner, and was getting overwhelmed with all of the thoughts. But I found a way that kind of worked for me, and that was really just seeing those thoughts as an opportunity as to what was coming up. I
Mm.
was giving my mind that space, and instead I just kept thinking, oh, all these random thoughts are coming up, and dismissing it as meditation not really working for me. But
Mm.
when I then saw it as, no, these thoughts are coming up for a reason, you just need to acknowledge them as either ones that you want to dig into more, or ones that you don't, but they're coming up for a reason. So the more I got into that practice of meditation, and again, just consciously giving my mind the time to see what comes up, it was just that
Mm.
conscious time. Because again, like, when do we ever in our busy lives just stop and give ourselves the time to see what's coming up, the
Mm.
time to check in? And again, as mums, it's this whole, we're too busy, we're too tired. But when we do it, it can be so transformative. And just sitting there and seeing what was coming up for me was mind blowing, because it was like all of the questions I had, all of the things I'd been wondering, and it all became so easy, because
Mm.
it was like I already knew it. I just wasn't realizing it because I wasn't giving it the space to breathe. So that was really good for me. And it meant then that I could follow that kind of stream of consciousness then that was coming up in my mind. And I love a whiteboard. Whiteboards for me are just the best creative space to just let my
Yeah.
mind run wild. So anything that was coming up for me in my meditation, it would just go onto the whiteboard, and it just became this big kind of crafty thing of all of the things that I felt were me and all of the things that brought me joy. And it then became like a conscious practice of just adding them back into my life and asking myself the question of, what do I want to do? Because this was something that I've struggled with my whole life, is who do I want to be in this world and how do I want to show up? Like
Mm.
that age-old question of what do you want to be when you grow up? I never knew. I just fell into a good job and just went from there. And it wasn't until, again, I didn't have a job to go to every day because of COVID, that I was like, it's time to ask myself, what do I actually want to do with my time? And that was where I kind of figured out that I wanted to help other women that was going through the same experience I was, because it was more common than I realized to struggle with that sense of identity as you go through that massive transition into motherhood. And I thought, how more equipped can I be than have literally lived my own experience, than to help other women find that sense of purpose and use these tools like journaling, meditation, just even like like solitary time on your own, which
Mm.
can be really rare, to just go on that journey of figuring out who you are so that the ripple effect can be really positive on the people around you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, my journey also started a lot with meditation. And yeah, when you finally give yourself space, you realize like how much is wanting to come through and how much clarity you're able to get by just like becoming the witness of your own thoughts and how that echoes into your life outside of the meditation. Like your life becomes a meditation, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So the piece that I think probably mothers struggle with the most is the time piece. And there's this idea of like there's not enough time. And it's an idea and it's also a reality for some people. So how do you help your clients navigate that?
So I think it's that I always remember somebody saying to me, if you ever want something done, give it to a mum, because their time management is crazy. You find
Mm.
pockets of time in the smallest of spaces. Multitasking just becomes like a superpower. And I think it's more of a narrative that we tell ourselves that we're
Yeah.
so busy. And that's not to say that we aren't, because don't get me wrong, like some parts of the day especially are chaotic, and depending on what your kids are like, how many kids you've got, all of that type of thing, it can be a really overwhelming, overstimulating time. But it's even things like when you're making your morning coffee, just having those moments to like just close your eyes and like drop into your body and just check in.
Mm.
Like you can find those minutes in some of the smallest spaces. So like for me, I love walking my son to school, and then walking back, I leave my headphones out or I'll put them in, but I won't put anything on. And I'll
Mm.
just see what's coming up in my mind. I'll just see
Mm.
what thoughts are coming in. And like you say, you just become the conscious witness. So it doesn't even have to be, right, I'm carving out 10 minutes to sit down. It can be in the small little habits of the everyday, where you just think, this is a moment of silence. I'm just going to close my eyes and ground myself and breathe and see what's coming up. And
Mm.
again, it can be the smallest little download, the smallest kind of thought that comes in that you go, well, I wasn't expecting that. And it just helps you kind of navigate how you're feeling. Because that's the biggest thing, is we can be so busy that we go through the day not realizing how we even feel in that day until something
Mm.
happens and we respond reactively.
Mm.
And actually kind of choosing how you want to show up in that day and setting that intention, or just going, this is what's coming up for me today. You can then be a lot more proactive in terms of your response because you're aware of how you feel. Whereas I was living my life in a reactive mode because I was just waking up and getting on a treadmill of life and then
Mm.
wondering why I was so burnt out, so emotional all the time. Like that's a big
Yeah.
one for me is emotional regulation. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I was
it's
gonna
like if I
say, like, if you're listening to this, really hear what she's saying here because so many people live their lives in such a reactive way, and like, no matter what you're doing, whether you run a business, have kids, or do all of it, like, Paige is an example of like it's possible. Like, tell them, like, you recently had a baby. It was not that long
yeah,
ago, right? How long ago?
yeah, 10 weeks
10
ago.
weeks ago. And she's on a podcast with me. She's so we actually met through QCA, Quantum Coaching Academy. So she was doing that. I mean, she runs an amazing business. So it's possible, and that's why it's such a gift to bring you on, and like it's such a gift that you're like leading the way in this space, because actually maybe you could speak into like how having this awakening, having this new relationship with your emotions has impacted your role as a mother, impacted the relationship you have with your children and your family and friends.
Yeah, definitely. And that was probably one of the biggest areas that I noticed it was because I was being so much less reactive and so much less emotional because I understood how I felt. I was able to communicate that better. So I love to talk. Talking is my thing. I will talk about things, and that's usually how I figure life out. I just have to verbalize it, just have to say it out loud. And I think because I had gone so far into my shell, I'd just stopped talking about it. I was just getting on with life. That when I started talking about it again, it was like my partner then understood because he was like, well, I get it. That makes so much sense. And then when I started going on this journey of rediscovering who I was and consciously choosing how I was showing up for like my day and for my family, I found that I got this new sense of patience.
Mm,
And again, it must have just come from having an understanding of myself more and where I was at and just holding space for where I was at, loving myself where I was at, because I knew that I was in this transitional phase and that we'd all been through so much that I was so much less reactive, which then meant that I had patience. So I was less snappy, I was less grumpy, I was able to just respond to my child better.
mm,
Because yeah, he was about kind of 18 months at this point. So it's just a bit of a wild time where they're struggling to communicate and but they're learning all of the new things. And it can be things that you either again have that panic response to, or you just learn to again, it's almost like being like a conscious observer.
yeah.
You would just respond from a place of calm and a place of
Mm,
patience because I was regulated and it just really improved our relationship. It improved all of the relationships around me because I was so much less reactive. I was so much coming so much less from that emotional space and more of that calm objective space and seeing the situations for what they actually were instead of what I thought they were or what I immediately felt that they were. And not responding from that emotional place meant that I could just have a more positive response and just a more calm response. It was just
mm,
instead of going like this all the time, like a roller coaster of emotions, I could just respond on a plateau. And that just felt like such a more aligned space to come from
mm,
and such a more comfortable place to come from because it's draining going from all these different emotions all of the time. Yeah, it's just helped all of the relationships around me because I feel like I can come from that more detached place instead of
mm.
being so emotionally involved.
I know when you're on the other side of it, like you're like, what are they talking about? How is this possible? But this stuff really works. That's why so many people talk about it. And like, yeah, I really encourage you to just take any moments you have and really like tune in with yourself. And Yeah, did you have to go through a period of like big emotional release? As a woman, like we have hormones, like that's what I've learned is to like work with your emotions because, well, from my perspective, I think that we still need to honor the emotions that come up. Yes, we want to act from this calm, detached place, but like at the end of the day, that's not always possible. Sometimes I'm feeling rage and all these things. So, what tools and techniques do you use for your emotional regulation if that's something that you explore?
Yeah, so like you say, if the emotions come up, we have to release them. I think it's part of our process. Like you say, especially as a woman, we're on this cycle and we have to kind of go with the flow of that and just appreciate that we're still going to have these emotions
Yeah.
and we are still going to feel them at certain points in time, and releasing them is healthy. Like
Mm,
bottling anything up is never good. It's making sure that you get to be able to release that,
mm.
but in a slightly more proactive way as well. Like I love a good cry. I love a good cry. I love
Yeah.
a good vent. Love a good rant. Like,
Yeah.
and it feels so good to just let that out.
Yeah.
And it gets to be done in a healthy way, in that healthy space. And then I'm kind of like, all right, it's out now.
Beautiful.
Is there
Yeah.
any action I want to take off the back of this?
Yeah.
Because like I had a situation with a friend, this was a couple of years ago now, and going through this process made me realize that the energy of this relationship wasn't good
Mm,
and it actually wasn't serving me anymore. Then I kind of had a conscious process of what's the right outcome for me now to be able to deal with this so that I can manage my own energy and even put like a boundary in place, because
mm.
that's another thing. Like energetic boundaries are so important for how we deal with our emotions, how we process our time as well, what energy we give to what relationships. Um, and again, I meditated on it. I gave it time. I gave it like a good couple of days to like a week of processing. Um, and then yeah, I made the decision that I would just set that energetic boundary and take that step back. And it was interesting because then it kind of fell into its natural place. It then
Mm.
became easy. So it's like these decisions sometimes that can feel so hard because we have such an emotional response to, can end up feeling really easy because it is then the right decision to make. So I agree with you. Like, we have to process our emotions. We're women, we're on that cycle, we have to feel them. It's
Mm.
healthy, it's also part of healing. Like, again, the energy is stored in your body. Like, you have to let that out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it manifests in other ways. And then
Yeah.
that's a whole different process of digging into. Let it all out. Feeling is healing completely.
Yeah, and emotions are just energy in motion. And so using them to understand yourself will help you understand how you relate to others. So it's really powerful to dive into this work. So I also wanted to ask you something about motherhood, and a lot of women I follow, including you, seem to like have some superpowers activated post motherhood. And I think it's so beautiful to watch because I think previously there was this idea of like when you become a mother, that becomes your life. And like if you want to balance that with a business, like you're gonna have to sacrifice your relationship with your kids. It's like one or the other. And like
Mhm.
doing it all is just like a complete overstretch in many ways. And so I now see a generation of women who are like using the open-heartedness and power that comes from like being a mother to generate a really successful business that's on your own terms. So I don't know if you relate to that, but I'd love you to
Yeah.
speak into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think when my son was born, I just, I used to care so much about work. I cared so much about my job to the point that I would give myself so much stress and anxiety. So when my son was born, I was like, the perspective shift was huge. I
Mm,
was like, there is so much more that's important than just work. And
Mm.
it was so mind-blowing, like it felt so obvious, but because I was so in the thick of it before, I didn't see it. And so as I was going on this rediscovery journey and figuring out what my purpose was in this world, I just thought I can create this. I was seeing again other mums balance business and babies, and I just thought I can do this. I can. Like it was almost unpicking that old narrative of you have to be in a secure, stable job. The world is not almost set up to support parents in corporate workplaces because your family life almost has to adapt to your corporate life 9 times out of
Mm.
10, unless you have a really, really incredible, flexible corporate company. And they are out there, but you do then feel like you're constantly trying to fit your family around your job. And that's how I felt. And
Mm.
I also felt like I was going into work and it was as though my energy would just shift. And I would just think like, this isn't the work that I want to be doing. So it was as though my why became bigger and bigger as time went on. And the more my business grew, like the more I saw and see the potential that's in it
Mm.
to give my family and myself the life that I desire outside of the corporate world. And I think it's just one, believing that it's possible,
Yeah.
and then two, just like finding a framework that works for you around your family. So obviously I'm on maternity leave at the moment, so my daughter is here all of the time, but she naps, and naps are great for me. Like I do work in nap time. Sometimes I'll nap when she naps. Again, it's just finding that balance, and I think just being really open each day and trying not to plan too far ahead because it is difficult with kids to plan too far. And some days I just think, right, what does today look like? What do I want to work on today? What does my business need today? And what does my baby need today? You gradually start to see the potential and the opportunities in those small areas of time as you get to know yourself and as you get to know your babies, your kids, your routine, as to where you can fit those things in. And now we're in like a really nice pattern where I know where I can do business and I know where I can then be 100% present as a mum, which is especially after school.
Yeah, it's all about just like finding your flow and knowing where you can best serve at that time and being present in that. And I wanted to ask you a question about identity because I feel like as women, well, maybe men too, but like we take on all these different roles throughout time.
Mm.
And obviously, like your identity is probably going to change as your children are more grown up. You know, that's like a natural thing. But like it feels like to me you did a lot of soul searching and kind of found yourself in a way. So like how do you feel like you found yourself in light of the fact that like you're always going to be changing and like your external roles is always going to be shifting? Because a lot of people I feel like get lost in that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I think that like connection to self is so important, because when I went on the journey originally, I was so disconnected from myself and who I was and who I was becoming that I reached a place where I found who I was. But you're right, it's who I am in that moment. It's who I am in that season of my life. And I do have times where I then feel a little bit disconnected again.
Mm.
And again, that can be based on like daily habits or again, just what's going on in life. I can sometimes just feel a bit like right now. And then when I go back through that process of getting reconnected, I kind of learn more things as I go along, or I
Yeah.
kind of understand what those roles need from me, or what I need from others, or what I need for myself. And so I think it's that, like you say, it's that continuation of that journey, of that connection to you, so that you know yourself the best. But like you say, we're always evolving. And so by consistently checking in with you and how you're feeling and who you are, and like you say, even just what you need from that day, you support yourself along that journey. So
Mm.
you're almost like evolving with your identity,
Yeah.
but because you've got a connection to self, you know how to come back to you. It's like that homecoming. You know
Mm.
how to get back to that place of,
Mm.
I'm connected to me again now, and I know what I need, and I know what I
Yeah.
need to do, and I know how I want to feel. I think that just really, it helps support you as you then go through those big life transitions as well. Motherhood's big, but again, other things happen, right? And
Yeah.
it helps you navigate them because you know you, and you know how you heal, you know how you process emotion, you know how to reconnect. Yeah, and so I think it helps you support yourself on that journey of evolving through your identities and through your roles.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just asked that question because I think it's important people know that it is a constant commitment and it's a
Yeah,
constant journey as external things are happening to constantly like be checking in with yourself. So, how do you prioritize self-care in your life? Like, do you like carve out time, or is it just like you flow with your day, like when you're kids and when you feel like that's the right moment to check in? Is it very much like a flow, or do you ever like carve out like dates for yourself?
I kind of start the day with a social battery or a general battery, and then throughout the day that kind of dwindles and I'll get more tired or more overloaded or all of the different things. The other day I had a bath at about 4 in the afternoon because
Mm.
I was like, I need to decompress, I need to relax. I was just feeling a bit overstimulated, and I was like, what do I need to do to just chill out right now? And that was what my body needed. Also, not feeling guilty for doing things for you, like
Yeah.
not feeling guilty for saying, like, this would make me feel really good, like,
Yeah.
this would make me feel confident or give me a boost, or
Yeah. And it's
because
really
in
important to speak into guilt because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. How did you overcome that?
because I could see the positive effect that that had on me and the positive effect it was having on the people around me, because my energy was higher, my energy was more positive, I was more uplifted, I was more lit up, I was more confident. I was like, as much as there is this, I miss my kids, or I feel bad that I'm leaving them at home to go and do this thing for me, I'd come home just so
Mm.
expanded and feeling so abundant and just feeling so lit up that
Mm.
they sensed that. And
Yeah.
even like my partner says to me, like, go and do what you want. Only a positive can come from you doing something that's going to make you feel good. And so
Mm.
just changing that story in your head to give yourself permission to go and create that positive ripple effect. So yeah, just rewiring that narrative for sure makes such a big difference.
I think it's really important for people to really understand the importance of this because I think as parents, as busy people, we take on this like martyr victim role of like, I'm doing everything for everyone, and that feeling like that's something to be proud of when really like pouring into you is like the best thing you can do for everyone around you. So I want to speak a bit about your relationship and how when you had this big shift your relationship shifted too, because I'm sure your identity and your understanding of yourself changed a lot. So how did that dynamic play out?
Yeah, so I mean, my partner's always been very like supportive of everything I do. And I think because I had a lot of, I've always wrestled a little bit with anxiety, and that came to quite a head when I was pregnant with my son. So I really struggled for a couple of months with, again, like regulating my emotions and like negative self-talk,
Mm.
like intrusive thoughts, all of that type of thing. And I think he saw that in all its glory when I was pregnant, that he definitely understands that everything I'm doing has a positive impact. So
Mm.
he's really supportive of kind of giving me that time to meditate. Like even
Mm.
some mornings I'd wake up and I'd be like, I really just need to like be on my own this morning. Like, could you drop the little one to nursery? And because we do a lot as a family as well, like
Mm.
as much as we can do together, we do like
Mm.
swimming lessons, school runs, we all go. which probably isn't very efficient, but again, it's like a nice time to check
Yeah,
in.
it's beautiful.
Um, yeah, so some days I'll wake up and I'm like, I just can't do the school run today. Like I just need that 15 minutes to like just be on my own. And he's like, fine, do what you need to do. I'll do the school run. And yeah, I think he really appreciates that it helps me show up as the better version of me
Mm.
and that my emotions are in a better place. It helps me feel better. And because obviously my well-being is important to him and me feeling happy and like connected and
Mm.
just thriving,
Yeah.
he sees that positive ripple effect. He sees how it changes how I show up with the kids and like my patience levels, that type of thing.
I think there's something important to pick up on here is that the reason this dynamic is working is because you honor yourself. I think a lot of the time there's a lot of like blame and hatred and like, you don't take care of me and you don't give me the space to do that. But it's like, you need to advocate for yourself and then the other person will respond. So you know your limits, you know when you need the time. And that's why it's so important to connect with yourself for even your romantic relationship with your partner.
Yeah. And like you just said, like that communication bit is huge. Like advocating for yourself and saying, I need this time today. This is how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling great, and this is what's going to help me. And actually verbalizing that. And I had to learn to do that
Yeah.
because was a period of time where I just expected him to be able to know how I was feeling and look at my face and be able to tell, and he
Mm.
couldn't. So by actually communicating that and making it so plain and so obvious and saying, this is what I need, can you support me in getting there?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like just do what you need to do. Just and that's what he says to me, like, be direct, be blunt, tell me what you need from me
Yeah.
and I'll help you.
And this
And
is
yeah,
also a wider conversation of the different ways men and women differ. Men, the masculine is very direct. They just want to know and like solve it. And we are a lot
yeah,
more emotional and intuitive, and we expect that from men when really like I'm starting to realize is that like we are different and that's okay because we have female friends and we have our mothers and our sisters to like help us with that, and then we have our partner to support us and male energy to support us in a different way. And I think that's a really powerful thing to really realize. And you've just
yeah,
presented an example of that. So I hope that helps someone in their relationships around them. So
yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to give you the space to like talk about your offerings right now and just say any last words of wisdom that want to come through.
Yeah, I think just connect to you. I always say in everything that the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself, because that is the foundation of which you build all of the relationships around you, with your kids, with your partner, like you say, with your family and your friends. And so don't feel guilty for nourishing that relationship with you, for filling up your cup. There is never a negative that's going to come out of you doing something that's going to make you feel good. The ripple effect is only positive.
Yeah.
So that'll be my last little words of wisdom.
Yeah, and just to add to
Um,
that is that if you have that story of that it's like selfish or negative, like that's a story you've created, and so you get to redefine
mm,
what it is to take care of yourself.
yeah, absolutely. And you'll see the benefits. You will
Yeah,
see the benefits of investing in yourself, investing in time for yourself. And so that encourages you to do it more because you actually see the byproduct of you
yeah,
taking that time. Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, if you want to connect with me, I hang out on Instagram mainly. So that's at Discovering Mum. Yeah, and then really in terms of offerings, I've got some free guides available, some free tools. I also run an Empowering Her community membership, and also yeah, some one-to-one coaching. So if you
Yeah,
want to connect with me, then please do on there. I'd love to
yeah,
chat. My inbox is always open as well. So
yeah. And do
yeah,
you
that'd
do
be
you
great.
mainly help new mothers or also people after and people who maybe like are wanting to become a mother and are like have all these fears coming up? Like you support a whole range, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because even some kind of, I call them more seasoned mums, like the pros, teenage years, that type of thing. Because even like my mum's had it where all three of us have moved out. And she's like, my kids are grown up now. She's like, and I've now got this space. My role looks
Yeah,
different. And she's like, what do I do with that time? And I'm like, what do you want to do? And so she's gone on this journey as well of like
yeah,
having this house that's kind of empty now. And her and my
mm,
dad are kind of re-navigating their relationship as
yeah,
well, because their life looks different now and their
yeah,
roles look different. So yeah,
yeah.
mum's at any stage really, because it's all an involvement from one stage of motherhood to the next. So
Yeah, and I've had a lot of chills throughout this thing because I think serving women in this way is just so beautiful because I think for so long it's been such a source of like loss of identity, disempowerment, and really like there's so much power in this and so much that you can learn about yourself through this process as opposed to like seeing it as something where you lose yourself.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so
this age
beautiful.
old phrase of your life ends when you have kids, and it's honestly the biggest outdated statement,
Yeah, it's
because
outdated, but it's still very much alive. So
mm,
I think this work is so beautiful. And yeah, I'd love to collaborate on something when I get back because, yeah, I'd love to meet you
yeah,
in person.
oh, that would
But
be amazing,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, but thank you so much for your time, for getting up so early to be here. I really honor that and appreciate your presence and everything that you're doing. And yeah, reach out to Paige for coaching, for advice, for help, and follow her on Instagram. And she also has a podcast as well. So
Yeah.
she's 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 a lot going on and is amazing. So thank you all for being here and sending you all love. I hope you guys loved this episode, and I just wanted to add another thing about motherhood is that being a mother is something you can channel in everything that you do, in the way you interact with people, in the way you interact with yourself. And since being in Bali, I've really felt the mothering energy of this land. I feel so nurtured here, and it's been so beautiful. And I've also just been investing in myself in so many ways and so many trainings and so many retreats. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to talk about my retreat coming up in Bali. It's an investment into yourself, into learning how to nurture yourself and come home to your divine feminine energy and your body in a whole new way. So I'm going to drop a link for it in my show notes, and I really hope to see you guys there. And of course, get in touch with any information. We have a few spots left, August 1st to 6th, here in Ubud, and this land is just absolutely magical. So sending you all love and speak soon. Bye.